Hi, so glad you're here. This channel is all about pulling back the curtain to understand how economic forces combine with political power to create a sense of what it means to be an American. And more importantly, what we can do together to make it a better version of America than we've ever had before. That sounds like pie in the sky talk, but I think we can all agree we can do a whole lot better than what we're doing right now. And I think the vast majority of people across the political spectrum, and to include people who don't normally participate in politics, would also agree that we all want what's in best interest for all of us Americans. That's what we should be focused on. That's what a lot of people have been voting for. I think for every presidential election since the end of the Cold War, the person who won that presidential election could be summed up as the change candidate. But where is the change? Until very recently. And is that really the change we want to see? Well, today we're going to dive deep into an article that was published in 2014, but is still very resonant today. It's from two authors, Gilens and Page, who are professors who study political science. And they tend to dive into, specifically for this article, how does political power track or correlate with public opinion? And we're just going to cover one figure for their article, and we're going to talk about it. So this is figure one from the 2014 article. And all the three figures I'm going to show you are really telling you is, in theory, if public opinion is massively for something, so if 100% of people in America agree that we should be doing something, that a legislative process would conclude with a law that does that thing. Likewise, if 0% of Americans believe we should not do something or whatnot, then we would not have a law. That's the basic premise here. So in theory, if our legislative process was going to correlate with public opinion, you would see some line going up and to the right on your screen. And the interesting part of this study is they were able to collect enough data on enough different legislative processes, state, national level, and enough public opinion surveys to be able to do regressions to pull this apart from a couple different subgroups that are incredibly important. The first one that might be eye-opening to a lot of people watching this is if you're an average citizen, your preference doesn't correlate at all, statistically speaking, to the outcome of the legislative process. What does that mean in layman terms for how we talk today? If you're a working class person in America, if 100% of us agreed on something, the law passing on that one thing, let's just say if 100% of people wanted common sense gun reform, which the actual number is around 70 to 80%, but if 100% of Americans agreed on that, the chance the law would get passed is about 30%. And if 0% of Americans wanted that, the chance of the law passing is about 30%. That's what I mean by statistically insignificant. It's a little bit different story if you look at economic elite's preference. Who's an economic elite? Who qualifies? Think of it this way. If you have enough money where you're donating maximum contributions to candidates and often to more than one candidate, you're probably an economic elite. And what their research says is the preference of those economic elites matters a whole lot when it comes to whether or not Congress or a state legislative body is going to respond. So if 100% of wealthy people believe in something, the chances that something is going to get passed is not 100%, but it's very, very high. Likewise, if 0% of the economic elites in our country want something to happen or none of them want it to happen, then the chances of it passing are virtually zero. That's really what it should be for all of us. And if you graphed it out for the entire population, it would look this way. But when you separate it out by income group like this is where you see a distinction that matters. The last one here is really interesting. Interest groups. The sort of groups where economic elites tend to form them, and they're not all bad, but like these groups get formed to pursue specific policy objectives. That's why the pharmaceutical company literally has multitudes of lobbyists for every member of Congress. It's why our military-industrial complex has more lobbyists than we have members of Congress. They organize. And by the way, organizing isn't entirely bad. Just like big pharma or large military contractors organize, so too do doctors to provide better healthcare for folks. Not all organization is bad, but in this context, it's really interesting that while the economic elites look fairly linear, or like for every percent that it goes up, it goes over. So in other words, for every percent an elite group wants something, the chances of it getting passed goes up by about the same. The interest groups, it's exponential. So if anywhere from 70 to 100% of the interest groups want something to pass, it has a very, very, very high chance of passing. If they're divided, it's a neutral effect. And if most of them are against it, then it has almost no chance of passing. This graph summarizes how our political system works today. Why does it work this way? To understand that, you have to understand what role does money play in our political system. Unfortunately, about 97% of candidates who win have more money than the other side. That's the one variable that seems to hold true whether you're Democrat or Republican. So what does that mean? Well, I have run for office, but I've run for office under a public funding option. I have looked at running for office in a congressional seat that isn't really all that expensive. Our current incumbent has been there for 20 years. He does a great job, but just doing my due diligence to understand how much it would cost. It basically boils down to I would need to be able to raise between $3 to $5 million as a rookie to run and have a really good shot at winning that seat. I would also need to be able to take about 1.5 years off from work to do that as my full-time job while not earning an income. In order to, one, be in a position to take that much time off from work, I already have to be economically pretty well off or be willing to live a very, very Spartan life. Some people do that. I am really amazed at the people that do and wish we had more people who would do that. The more important part, I think, for this conversation is that $3 to $5 million. Where is that going to come from? You can only raise it, in theory, from Americans. So you spend a lot of your time fundraising. A lot of candidates who are running for office spend the vast majority of their time fundraising. What does that really mean? It means they're spending time with the sort of people who are either in interest groups or make up the economic elite group while they're trying to win votes from the average citizen group. It's a very counterintuitive way of influencing our politics, but it's one that influences every single one of our politicians. There are studies out there that say up to 70% of an elected member's time, after they're already won their election or doing the job of being a legislator, up to 70% of their time is spent fundraising for the next election. What does that really mean? It means we think we're electing people to go to a capital to represent us to solve problems. What their real job ends up being is being a professional fundraiser, to surround themselves with interest groups that have money to donate, with around economic elites who have money to donate so they can keep having the opportunity to do something that they think is for the good. There's a lot of good intentions in this system, but the system itself is run by money. That's why we have these graphs. That's why even if before you saw these graphs, most of us know that our politics isn't really representative of us. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be this way. We could pass true campaign finance laws that limit the amount of money. We can publicly finance elections so that actually every viable member who's running for office has an equal shot at it. There's a lot of things that we can do. There's a lot of laws that we have already passed in our own country at state and county levels that we could play with. There's a lot of other laws that have been passed in other countries to limit the influence of money in politics. But until we take that seriously, this trend is unfortunately going to remain true. And I think right now, what we see more than anything else is the billionaire class showing off that they run the show. That's why you have a record number of billionaires in the Trump cabinet. That's why we have a record number of billionaires coming out actively campaigning for certain candidates. A billionaire's vote should not be worth more than a working class person's vote. But right now, their preferences sure are. So be part of the change. You don't have to necessarily write a new law or come up with a solution to be a part of the solution. What we all have to do a better job of is talking to people we care about this, talking to our friends, talking to our neighbors, sharing this video. If you have other questions, throw them down in the comment section. I'm really looking for guidance on how to grow this channel to be most proactive and informational for people who want to do something with it. If you're one of those people, please reach out by throwing a comment below and telling me where you want the direction of this channel to go. Thanks. If you haven't yet, please click like on this video, drop a comment below, and click that subscribe button. It'll help the YouTube algorithm make sure that these videos are getting into your feed. Thank you.